Hello, and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Friday, 31 January. I'm your host, Daniel, and today we'll be covering the Syrian interim president has vowed to form an inclusive government. France has told Rwanda to immediately leave the DRC, and Trump has threatened BRICS members with tariffs if they replace the US dollar. So firstly, Ahmed al-Shara, Syria's newly appointed interim president, has pledged to establish an inclusive transitional government and hold a national dialogue conference to shape the country's future. In his first televised address since the fall of Bashar Assad in December 2024, he emphasized the importance of civil peace, territorial unity, and free and fair elections. He announced plans to create a temporary legislative body to fill the parliamentary void and the dissolution of the Syrian parliament. Additionally, a committee would soon be formed to organize the National Dialogue Conference, which would serve as a platform for discussing Syria's political future, ultimately leading to a new constitutional declaration. Al-Shara estimated the drafting of the new constitution and holding elections could take up to 4 years. In his speech, he also vowed to bring justice to those responsible for crimes and massacres in Syria, whether they were inside the country or abroad, by establishing a real transitional justice system. He also promised to build strong state institutions based on justice, competence, and economic stability. The newly established Military Operations Department, aligned with Syria's new ruling administration, took immediate steps by abolishing the 2012 constitution, dissolving Assad's parliament, and disbanding all armed factions and integrating them into a state institution. These measures signal a significant shift in Syria's governance and a move towards rebuilding the nation after years of conflict. So what? Actions speak louder than words, and while al-Shara is saying all the right things, it will be the actions of this new government that they will be judged by. While it seems likely that this new government will try to implement inclusive practices, the reality on the ground may be very different, with the likelihood of tribal issues and conflicts between various groups turning into violence being high. And next, France has called for the withdrawal of Rwandan forces and the Kigali-backed M23 rebels from eastern DRC, following the M23's recent capture of the city of Goma. The French Foreign Ministry reaffirmed France's stance that the Congo's sovereignty and territorial integrity are not negotiable, and urged the immediate retreat of both M23 and Rwandan troops. The French minister visited both Kinshasa and Kigali to support diplomatic efforts by Angola and Kenya to mediate peace talks. The call for withdrawal comes amid growing tensions, including protests targeting the French embassy in Kinshasa. Despite international pressure, M23 rebels have vowed to continue their offensive beyond Goma, with the leader declaring their intent to march towards Kinshasa unless their grievances are addressed. In response, the Congolese president promised a strong and coordinated military response. Meanwhile, Rwandan president warned of a potential confrontation with South Africa, which has condemned M23's actions. The escalating conflict has already resulted in the deaths of 13 South African soldiers deployed as part of a United Nations peacekeeping mission. The crisis is further complicated by mutual accusations, with Rwanda alleging Congo's support of Hutu militias linked to the 1994 Rwandan genocide, while the Congo accuses Rwanda of using M23 to control its mineral-rich regions. So what? It seems likely that this is going to turn into a significant regional conflict. While it is unlikely that the DRC would accept French support, similarly to how they denied support from Turkey earlier, it is possible that without external support, the DRC will be hard pressed to regain control of Goma. However, regardless of M23's statements about marching on Kinshasa, this is unlikely to happen due to the distance and terrain challenges faced across the country. It is unlikely that M23 and their Rwandan backers have the skill or experience to maintain military supply lines for over 2,400 kilometres in the jungle. Yet, this is also a challenge for the DRC military and anyone who helps them, as they will also need to overcome these challenges in any form of counterattack, where it is much simpler for Rwanda to resupply M23 as Goma sits next to the border. Lastly, US President Donald Trump has threatened BRICS member states with 100% tariffs if they attempt to create or back a new reserve currency to challenge the dominance of the US dollar. Trump had previously made similar statements after winning the election in November 2024, reiterated this stance on his Truth Social platform, emphasizing that no country would be allowed to replace the dollar in international trade. The BRICS bloc economy, which now includes 11 nations, has been discussing alternatives to the dollar, particularly after Western sanctions on Russia. However, despite these efforts, the US dollar remains the world's primary reserve currency with significant global reliance. In addition to targeting BRICS, Trump also announced a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico, set to take effect tomorrow. While he has not decided whether to include oil in these tariffs, he stated that the decision would depend on whether the two North American countries and trade partners offer fair prices. His tariff policies are also linked to efforts to curb illegal immigration and smuggling of fentanyl-related chemicals, which have contributed to widespread opioid-related deaths in the US. So what? Trump has come out of the gate hot with his push to try and bring the US economy back to the number one spot. He has also used these tariffs as a way to force countries into accepting other terms, as mentioned in the article, such as accepting deported immigrants. All of this is only effective if the country threatened needs the US economy more than the US needs them. So while Trump can use these measures to push around countries such as Colombia, it is unlikely to be as effective on China. Thank you for tuning in to the Intel Brief, your daily update on global geopolitics, brought to you by HM Intelligence. You can support the show by sharing it with your friends and leaving us a 5-star review. And if you're curious to learn more about intelligence, you could check out one of our podcasts in the description below. Thank you for listening. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you next time.